Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Rhea. I am your host, and today's Crew Travel is brought to you by Blue Marine Travel, who haven't lost a passenger since Lee was born. How are you, Lee Harris?
I'm very good, thank you, and Happy New Year to you, Rhea.
Yeah, right back at you. I saw a couple of pictures on your social media having some great vacation time, so I hope you enjoyed.
We had a great time. Thanks so much. Yeah, a nice week away. We're lucky here in New Zealand, aren't we, that we are actually allowed to leave our house, shall we say? So yeah, we did make the most of it.
More than 6 people in your bubble?
There was only 5, so we were okay.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, well, I mean, the rest of the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket real quick. We said this again last week. Everything was starting to look a little bit better, and then all of a sudden, boom, it kind of went tits up, as it were. So let's start. One of the big things this past week was, of course, Spain. Now, that had a lot to do with Brexit, the COVID virus, and so many other things. But what is the update in regards to UK crew or crew around the world in Spain at the moment?
Yeah, so basically, the regulations have been put in place, haven't they, with regards to the UK crew departing from the UK to Spain. I really wanted to give a more informed answer, in total honesty, this week with regards to what can be done and what can't be done. But the truth is, it's a completely grey area, and I can't give a definitive answer at the moment. The official line is that crew on board pleasure vessels, which obviously super yachts fall into, are not exempt from the ban currently in place, and as such, crew would be denied entry into Spain at this time. However, saying that, this last week we have seen and heard of numerous crew members being allowed entry into Spain. It almost appears like it's down to the check-in staff at the airport and how they interpret the regulations that are currently in place. If there are any UK crew who are looking to depart from the UK to Spain, what we would suggest is obviously to make sure they have all their documentation with them, i.e. crew letters, seaman book, crew list, and of course a PCR test dated no more than 72 hours prior to departure. Obviously, we'd also highly recommend a marine fare. So if there are any issues and you do get denied boarding, then the flight can be refunded. And one other thing that we have also noticed with regards to the crew that are managing to get into Spain, there seems to be a higher percentage of crew getting in on indirect flights. So anything that transits, say, Netherlands or Germany, etc., are definitely seeing more success than anything direct UK to Spain at this moment in time. Again, to reiterate though, it does almost seem down to check-in staff. So it's almost a 50-50, unfortunately. It's also worth knowing that the ban was due to end on the 6th of January, but has now been extended until the 19th of January.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to ask you. I mean, if you've spent any time in Spain, you know that pretty much all laws, it's down to whoever you're dealing with at the moment and how they define those laws. So, you know, we've had stories of people flying through, not a problem. And then we've had others where, you know, the authorities nab them the minute they land and march them over to the checkout desk. They have to buy a ticket back to the UK and back they go. No, you know, no ifs, ands, or buts. So it's a crapshoot, really.
It is at the moment. And the problem is that, like we say, that you know, if it was just a rule and it was in place and, you know, it was set for everybody, then fine, it's all good. You know, at least people know where they stand and they know what they can do. The issue is when you've got this sort of ambiguity of some getting in, some not getting in, and then it's difficult for people to know where they stand, especially when we're talking about people who need to get back to work. You know, do you risk it? Do you not risk it? The answer is, at the moment, to be honest with you, all I know and all I can say from our side is that we have had success getting people in, but that's not to say that everybody's going to be as lucky.
Right. Well, there you go, crew. Spain is one of those places where you need to double check, triple check, quadruple check, and hopefully have a good crew agent or crew travel agent by your side. And even that might not help you. So Canada, my home country, what's going on in Canada at the moment?
Yes, your home country indeed. Passengers arriving in Canada by air are now required to show proof of a negative coronavirus test before arriving into the nation. The government announced this move today as part of its measures to deal with the ongoing pandemic. the test must be no more than 72 hours prior to departure. As of this time, they have not given a confirmed date as to when this will be mandatory, but it is coming soon. But what we would suggest at Blue Marine is anybody who is travelling to Canada or even only transiting through, make sure to get a test done within the time frame as mentioned earlier. Otherwise, you could end up with issues on arrival at your departure airport.
Is there any quarantine going on in Canada at the moment?
They do have quarantine in certain parts. I think, don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% sure, but from what I can remember is Canada, it's almost a bit like the certain parts of other countries like Australia, etc., where it's almost state by state. Certain districts or whatever have it, others don't. We are finding that people are transiting through okay. Again, there's a slight issue there as well. Some are being allowed to leave the transit area and go to an airport hotel for the night if they've got an overnight. Then we're finding some that aren't allowed to. So again, it's just this whole sort of how people are reading the rules, etc. And it does make it difficult. But at this moment in time, we're seeing people transit through. People are going in as well. But it's just tough everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, no, and it's provinces, by the way, in Canada, just an FYI.
Provinces, sorry, yes, not states. I do apologise.
It's fine. I'll get over it by next week. So, Brexit. Now, January 1st, it all hit the fan, and well, a lot of people weren't happy with the way there was a deal rushed through at the last minute, and that is affecting travelers the world over. How is that affecting travelers the world over?
It is, and the thing with Brexit is people don't realise, is it? You just think if it's between the British and the European Union, but it's not. It affects everybody. So much so that Air France and KLM have announced this week that certain nationalities will require an airport transit visa, an ATV, if they've got flights that connect onwards to the UK. Basically, this means citizens from certain countries, namely Sri Lanka, Philippines, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and Russia, will all require an ATV in addition to their UK visas to transit through France and Netherlands. Obviously, this rule came into effect when the UK exited the European Union on January 1st, 2021. The new rule covers any nationals of the listed countries holding a normal UK visa, long stay visa, or a residence permit.
Well, and coming this way now too, I think that the UK, they can only, it's just like any other non-Schengen country, they can only stay, what, 90 days?
90 days in a 180-day period. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And again, these are all things that people didn't take into consideration, or I personally don't believe they did, when the vote went out. They weren't aware of all these things that were going to happen. So it's tough, especially for crew as well. It's extremely tough now. What with this whole 90-day thing, also with regards to the fact that they're now not going to be able to go through the EU line when they get to the arrival airport. So there's lots of delays, lots of new things that UK crew have definitely got to take on board.
I think everybody was expecting it to stay exactly the same way it was, just that they would be separate, which isn't really how the world works, but that's how sometimes I think we tend to think as human beings.
I think so, don't you? I mean, you hear, or we heard on the news, especially when I was living back in the UK when the Brexit referendum happened, you sort of heard certain things, how money was going to be saved if you came out and all the rest of it. But stuff like this, not touched on at all. So this is all brand new information for people. And, it does, but people still would have voted the same way if they had all the information to hand at the time of the vote.
Well, I think, we tend to bandy around huge numbers as far as financial things, but we don't talk about day-to-day living. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake that anybody could have ever made, is when we don't talk about how it's going to affect your daily life, as opposed to, wow, take a look at the trillions of dollars we're going to be saving, but we're going to spend on something else anyway. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix-up.
Exactly. It is, unfortunately so. I mean, it will right itself eventually, but it's going to be tough going for a few months, that's for sure.
Well, our hearts go out to the UK crew, because there's going to be a lot to figure out for the UK crew, and we all know that as far as crew go worldwide, UK is probably first or second as far as number of crew.
Yeah, it's tough at the moment for them. Yeah, it's going to get, it will get better. It's just a matter of sitting tight, and we'll get through it. We always do. I'm talking as a Brit now who's actually living in New Zealand, so I'm actually out of the bit, so it's easy for me to say that. But it's true, the British spirit will get through.
Yeah, stiff upper lip and all that. Right. So as far as crew questions, you got a couple this week. What's going on there?
We did. Firstly, we received an email with no name, unfortunately, but it's in relation to how flights from the UK to India have been affected by the travel ban placed on flights out of the UK. The good news is that the ban that was put in place by India has been lifted as of the 8th of January. However, there are tight restrictions in place, meaning only 15 flights per week will be allowed to enter India from the UK. So anybody who is looking for flights, make sure you get them booked up nice and in advance, obviously, because there is this limit of only 15 flights. The limit will be in place until the 23rd of January, when the number will be reviewed again. In all honesty, it's likely to be extended. I wouldn't imagine there being much difference at this time. The second question came from Scott, who wanted to know specifics on a certain flight that clearly he must be going on, or somebody he knows is going on. The flight in question is the Air France flight from Charles de Gaulle travelling to Papeete in French Polynesia. Scott wants to know, as the flight makes a technical stop in Canada, now, for anyone who doesn't know what a technical stop is, it's one where an aircraft touches down at an airport for refueling purposes, etc., but passengers do not tend to get off. As the flight makes a technical stop in Canada, would a Canadian visa be required? Now, the answer for yourself, Scott, is that you will need an electronic travel authority. Basically, this is called an ETA. It's similar to the US ESTA and can be applied online and usually takes at most 72 hours to come back. Without getting this, you would be denied boarding in Paris.
Wow, and they're not even getting off the plane. They're just sitting on the tarmac.
Literally sitting on the tarmac, waiting for that plane to be refueled, but without an ETA, they'll be denied boarding.
Wow. Well, I mean, I guess all these rules are put into place for a reason. Who am I to question why? I just work behind the camera.
Indeed. Who knows?
Well, it's definitely been an interesting week. Sorry?
We just don't know. We just put our hands up. It's just this.
I see you doing this an awful lot lately, just straight across the board. Not just with crew travel, but pretty much straight across the board. Shrug your shoulders and carry on, right?
It's my universal gesture for everything. I don't know.
I know. I think the world's feeling you. The world's in the same boat. We all are. Anyways, Lee, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on board here at YIR.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here. So, looking forward to next week.
Well, and if you want to keep up to date on all the things that are happening in the travel world, we're going to make sure to provide these details underneath this interview. Of course, follow him on LinkedIn, because I don't know how many times a day he posts on all the ever-changing things that are happening in the travel world, but it is very much appreciated. So we will provide those details, as well as Blue Marine Travel is on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it, they're there. Any questions that you may have, you can shoot them on over. We're also going to provide the email address for crew questions. If you have one that can wait for the answer, if you have a question that can't wait for an answer, then definitely we advise you to email. Correct?
Spot on. Well done.
You've been watching another edition of Crew Travel right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I've been your host. Please tune in again next week.